Hi. What I'm working on is an illustrated book, and I'd like to show a canal boat traveling the IMCNHC Canal in the fall of 1860, just before the elections, just before the Civil War. And this is a project I've kind of been working on for a while, and right now we're putting it up for a Kickstarter page, and that was the illustration you just saw. I've done a lot of work for the Canal Corridor Association since the late 90s. This is a kind of a whimsical map showing from LaSalle on the left all the way to Chicago on the right, which is sort of the route that my boat will be traveling. And illustrations like this, are fun. But what I really enjoy are doing more historical illustrations. This is an illustration of Bridgeport, where the IMCNHC Canal came into the Chicago River right about this time. I did this for the Canal Origins Park some years ago, but this has always sort of inspired my interest in trying to use illustration to tell stories. A couple years ago, I got the chance to do my first illustrated book, which is this book, 12 Moons, A Year with the Sauk and Meskwaki, 1817 to 1818. And this book sort of told a year in the life of these two tribes as they sort of migrated and as they hunted, as they farmed. My book on the canal boat, I'd like to look very similar to this. It'll have a lot of kind of cutaway views like this. I'd like to show sort of daily life. I'd like to show the tools and things that people used and, kind of how they lived their lives, which is kind of what the theme of this book was. So, but in this case, it'll be, I'll take a typical kind of a canal barge and sort of show the process of it moving from LaSalle, Peru, all the way to Chicago, and kind of trying to tell the story of the canal in 1860 as my boat sort of makes this journey. This is right now I'm sort of in the pencil sketch stage where I'm kind of doing the page layouts. This is sort of corresponds to that the longhouse cutaway I just showed you. This is a cutaway of a canal boat, or the stern of a canal boat. We have the steersman and the crew quarters below, and then you have sort of the main cabin. And speaking of John Hassuck, I'd like to show his elevator in Ottawa. I'd like to have my boat loading corn at John Hassuck's elevator in Ottawa, and then that will be the main cargo that the boat will take all the way to Chicago. Along the way, I'd like to show other towns and industry and sort of highlight industries for each one. This would be Morris, and here I'd like to show a lumber yard in Morris. And I'd like to talk about, even though my boat's not carrying lumber, at least on this trip, I'd like to talk about, how the boats carried the lumber, what it was used for, where it came from, sort of highlighting different industries along the way. And then, of course, I'll end up in Chicago, unloading my boat at an elevator in Chicago. You can see the sort of they call that a leg that goes down into the boat. It's sort of a continuous conveyor belt taking the corn out. And I want to use, this book to kind of tell the story and describe the economy of the canal, but do it from, kind of daily life. One of the sources that I'm using are photographs. This is a wonderful photograph of a canal boat in Lockport. This would be after the Civil War. But photographs like this just give me an immense amount of detail to work from. So that's kind of one of the sources that I'm trying to use. Here's a close-up of the stern area. You can see the sort of next to the rudder, you can see the little windows that kind of go into the stateroom area that I showed you before. You can see a big pile of wood that they're probably using for the stove. You can see, a mop and buckets, and so I'm trying to kind of capture those details in my drawing as well. I still want to add the lumber pile and the mop and the brooms to the mop and the buckets to this illustration. But studying these photographs, there's just all kinds of details that you can pick up about these boats. How the rudder worked. I just recently kind of figured that out from photographs. This is an image of that same boat a little further up. Here I was very interested in the hatch covers, because I wanted to try and get those right. You can see the photograph there. You can see that sort of that leg that I was talking about before that came down to take the cargo out. And then up front, they had these various sort of toolbox storage areas. So here's my version of the boat, kind of trying to draw on some of those details from that photograph. Also from photographs, I'm trying to get the clothing right. You know, what were people wearing at this particular time, and kind of what were people wearing in this area along the canal, and you know, canal boat workers. But it's not just going to be the boat. As I say, I want to tell about, you know, the various ports of call, and this would be LaSalle, the western terminus of the canal, and here you see the steamboats, which are sort of coming up from the Illinois River, and the landing, and I want to have my boat start here, next to the kind of the levee there, kind of maybe taking an assorted cargo to Ottawa before picking up corn. Going a little further along, you can see the canal lock in LaSalle, and then you see this, there's an elevator on the right with this interesting sort of wooden bridge structure that goes, you know, where they bring the wagons up to the top of the elevator and then out. I've never seen that before, but details like that you can pick up from things like the Sanborn fire insurance maps. This is that same area that I just showed with the Sanborn, and if you look down at sort of the lower right, you can see that elevator, you can see that sort of wagon, you know, that sort of wagon bridge, which it was just a fascinating feature. I've never seen an elevator that had something like that before. But there's all this detail, you know, from the Sanborn maps. There's also, this is a photograph of LaSalle, once again, seen looking west into that same area. So I can sort of correlate a photograph like this with the Sanborn map, and, you know, and with some additional historical detail and some, you know, some narrative and things like that. And then also, finally, there are these marvelous 19th century bird's eye views with this, once again, this is the same area. You can see that same elevator. So, you know, there's all these resources out there that you can kind of pull together to try and tell this story. And if you can kind of, you know, put enough information together and make sure it's the right information for the right time, I think you can put something like this together. So that's kind of my project. Good.